if you leave a comment there, we can see them from here, and if there are any questions for any of us. Okay, yeah. If there are any questions for any of us, then people who are watching on YouTube can just post it in the comments, and we can bring them into the screen, and you can chat with us. So hello everyone. Everyone doing good? Cheers.
Yes, all things considered.
Nice one.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So what's everybody up to at the moment?
Busy.
But you've got a name to live up to, haven't you? You know, you're always busy.
Oh yeah.
Oh, that took me way too long to process that one.
I didn't even get that.
Yeah. But you're not allowed to talk about anything, presumably. It's all.
Yeah, no, I can talk about whatever you want.
Well, yeah.
What do you want to know?
But busy. I'm presumably busy on
Busy biscuits.
On newness.
Hopefully.
Well, not hopefully, but are you?
Oh, what, on like new stuff coming out?
Yeah. Is it
no,
new?
I can't talk about that.
Oh, that's right. There you go. I'll talk about anything you like, just not that.
No, we don't. Well, we have the new Boss bow tie coming out in the next few days, but that's kind of been announced. But then we didn't announce it because they all got delivered and there was a problem with them all. But that's been fixed now. So,
what do you do when there's a problem with them all?
Well, you have nice people you work with that then offer to sort it all out and don't complain and do it all very kindly. So
when
that's
you say
basically what happened.
With them all, how many is all?
Oh, it was only like a small run.
Okay.
It's only like you know, like 100. So
it's
only like
totally, man. It's fascinating for me to understand like how these products are actually made. Because you know, I love the fact that with so many of these boxes in the modular universe, you can literally write to the person who's made it and get a response, and it's just I think for a lot of people who use it, myself included, that's one of the major draws, is that it feels like you're involved. And
when you make the modules, one of the major drawbacks is that people can contact you directly.
Yeah, I can see that too.
No, it's great. You know.
Noted. Yeah, but I'm glad we're chatting now because you won't be getting any emails from me about like all the.
You might have well emailed. No, we're pretty good though. We are pretty good.
You are good. I had an issue with something, and you guys were great.
Oh, thank you. No, cool.
Yeah,
we do put
really
a lot of
good.
effort into that. You know.
Wow.
So how many people is ALM Busy Circuits, Matthew?
Well, there's basically 2 of us full time. Well, 3 really. That we just there's 2 of us here in the workshop. There's another guy over in the US who was part time but is now full time, and then there's a couple of people that would do like part time. And then we use there's like a couple of different factories we use to do all the manufacturing and whatnot. And yeah, you know, it's been hectic recently because of all the COVID stuff and just like distancing. So Theo, who I work with, we've like been having to kind of like share the office, and you know, and he's been taking stuff home to do, but it's not the sort of work that you can, you know.
Right.
So that's been, you know, and then we got really busy because it seems like, you know, I guess people, you know, aren't spending money on going out or whatever. So they're like, I'll spend it on synthesizer modules, which is great, but I didn't sort of totally expect that. So we're kind of, you know, running at kind of like, I don't know, like 2/3 capacity, and then, you know, really busy. And also this time of the year, we're not really that busy normally, you know, it's normally sort of quite a quiet time. And then
somebody commenting, really busy circuits.
Yeah.
Yeah, by all
No, but I guess that must be frustrating to have to know that all of a sudden you're kind of running a race, but only at half capacity, and there's like twice the demand for everything that you're doing. There must be.
Yeah, but I can't complain, you know. I kind of like the. I must admit, I like the challenge, and you know, I can't complain at all. You know, I'm fortunate, really. You know, it's.
You can have a quick groan. I mean,
well, no.
It's
not that bad. There's been times in my life where I've worked a lot harder, you know, for a lot less, enjoyment and whatnot. You know, I love it, so I can't. You know, I'm lucky. You know.
Well, we're happy to have you, and I was only saying that just because I miss England. I miss having a good moan. They don't do it the same way in America. They don't know. They don't know the satisfaction of having a good old moan.
Yeah.
They just don't know what that can vent for an English person, or maybe Europeans in general. Actually, I think we all have that in common. We quite like a good moan.
Like to build people up and then knock them down.
Totally. Oh man. Yeah. So you're busy. What about you, Colin?
Yeah, it's been dynamic days.
You've been rocking, man. You have been killing. I've been loving watching you do your stuff.
Awesome,
I think you've spent more time on screen than off screen these days, I guess.
Oh man, it's like these past like I think last week was the first time that I actually really left the house, and it was only to go to a different studio. So this weekend was the first time where I really wasn't making any music whatsoever, and it felt weird. Like I was just walking around the house and going outside like, hey, so am I not supposed to be doing something right now? And it's kind of when this entire Rona thing started happening, I had this 1 week of, oh my god, I don't know what I'm gonna do, because all of a sudden calendars cleared out and everything. And what is it, 3 months later right now? I don't know, I think I've recorded over 200 hours of music, something like that. And it's just been, these days have been absolutely ridiculous. It's
So do you have any plans for everything, or do you just make up plans on the go, because you've been creating and generating so much stuff in the last
well, kind of a combination of both. Like I started making plans with everything that I was doing while I was doing them. I guess so. It's I didn't really had I had something like a vague idea before all of this started, and that was that I wanted to rely less on live performing and find a way how to capture what I was doing live on actual recordings. And my biggest problem with that all the time was that I didn't really have the time to sit down and record some stuff and to really see how to do all that. Well, that problem got solved, and all of a sudden I got all the time in the world and nothing else to do except for jam with this instrument, record everything, and see what that ended up sounding like. And as time went by and I started doing more recordings, plans surrounding those recordings also kind of started popping up, where my biggest issue has always been that I do not want to write songs, and I don't want to do an album and then tour with that album for like 3-4 years or whatever and then make another one, because I've always felt like I want to make something today and have that be relevant for as long as I feel it, and then make something else tomorrow, you know? And that just doesn't really work with the traditional album format. So it was always like either I release nothing at all or I have to do everything. And now I've kind of found a way to do everything, I guess. So what I'm setting up right now is, just last week we a friend of mine made up the name for a record label I'm starting, which is going to be Hiss and Hurts Records. I'm super excited about that one. And then the idea is to start releasing a lot of these jams that I've been doing over these past couple of weeks on vinyl format mostly. And, just kind of collecting things together and seeing what fits, and just doing everything on a non-stop flow. And that's what I'm working towards right now.
So is that in a sense a way to capture improvisation and still be able to work on it afterwards. That's basically what you've been doing, right?
More or less, yeah. It's like over the past years, I've always been playing based on this improvisation kind of way of songwriting. Well, it's not really songwriting, but it really is just making everything in the live flow of things. And that has been both in the studio as it was on stage, so I never really had tracks when I started playing. And well, now I finally have recordings of all that. And my whole reasoning with releasing these recordings is that in order to really capture the essence of the whole scope of things that I'm working on, I have to give all of it a proper place. And I cannot just go and say, like, okay, so this is going to be kind of like the sum up or the summary of my work, because that is not one album worth of material. It's I've really been doing or making too many different things for that. So I am kind of looking for a way how I can keep the things that I am gonna be releasing with this always kind of relevant to what I'm doing right now. And in order to do that, it's more gonna be kind of like diary entries rather than a single landmark and then move on. It's don't know if that makes sense at all, but it's
yeah, it makes sense. That's quite similar to the approach that I'm taking with the Stoor project. You know, it's
nice. Yeah.
It's basically an ongoing audio documentary rather than setting a moment in the future where your album will be released. You know, so you have basically this whole road leading up towards the release, and then you get one shot. You know, you get one moment where everything is released, and then it's you go back into the vacuum basically afterwards. And you know, by making a series which is just added to every time something new is ready, it's kind of like an evolving developing project rather than and it's always relevant, always new, always current. You know, that's another
that makes a lot of sense, and that's what I really loved about your series in that sense, and was like how do I put that? When the thing that I noticed immediately when I started releasing records previously is that you end up with this pile of songs, and by the time they're released, you have
you're tired of them.
Yeah, you're completely tired of them. Like, you've played them like 100 or 1,000 times to really get everything perfect in its right format, and it's every show you do, you have to play those same exact things, and it's it just doesn't feel real anymore. It doesn't feel like I'm actually doing what is relevant to me as a creator at that moment. It feels like I'm kind of looking back on something I did some time ago, you know, and that's I don't know, it kind of felt like I want to do something that that feels relevant for me all the time whenever I am in the moment of making something, and that's the stuff that I want to be spending my time on. And that's what I really loved about this about the Stoor series that you've been doing, is how I mean, just the other day, like we played together like 3-4 weeks ago, right? Was something like that, and I just like the next day it kind of hit me, like, you've been doing sessions like these with so many different artists over the past couple of years, and I was just going like, wow, okay, so you've really learned to adapt to so many different musicians and styles of playing, and I've done so many different experiments, while still really maintaining your character in it, but still leaving a lot of room for the person you're playing with. That's so much more for me what music is about than just polishing a product and attaching it to a sappy story, and then having your marketing department float that around the world and hope that you get some bookings with it. It's it feels more like music to me, and that's
I guess that's what every solo musician is dealing with, you know, like I mean, like Jamie, for example, when you do an album, you know, you have the pressure is only on you and no one else. You know, you basically you have to come up with a concept. What is the range this album is going to span, or this project, or whatever, and you set yourself some rules, I guess, or make a frame in which you maneuver, or you know, and yeah, how do you solve that? I mean, because you're working with Modular as well, obviously, like we can see that behind you.
Yeah.
Lovely out of focus with your fancy camera there. You make everyone else look like an amateur, Jamie.
It'll get in focus.
Oh wow!
Does that work?
Look at that.
Do that. Yeah, no.
But
yeah,
I mean, the
you're
whole
right.
thing,
I mean,
the whole sorry, but the whole approach with Modular is you can make it do things in a structured way, but you will always end up with things that are you are basically having a conversation with the instrument, right? So you have this improvisation. How do you deal with capturing that and use that in your
That's, I mean, I think that's what I've learned from my limited experience with Modular. It feels as much to do with editing as it does making, which is a fine skill to learn. I mean, and in that regard, a lot of the great Miles Davis, a lot of the great jazz records, because when I'm hearing all this talk, it sounds like jazz, you know, in the best possible way, in a great way, where I'm like, because I love jazz. That's the musical form I feel most closely affiliated with as an improvised musician. I used to go on stage all the time with my looper back in the day, with nothing on my mind, much like you, Colin. I hit the stage with no pre-prepared material whatsoever, and just get through it just with my voice and just hang in there. And it's a hell of a rush, and it's like sometimes you fall on your face and sometimes you just hit a wave and you're rocking, right? But it's live. No one can deny that it's a visceral moment. And I always remember playing a show. I was doing these shows with the London Sinfonietta, and it was a big deal, and it was like Square Pusher and a bunch of really crazy artists all on this sharing the stage, and I had like 8 minutes. By the time like all of the other artists had their time, allotted slots, I had 8 minutes. And I was just really trying to get something going, you know. And I just remembered starting something and just falling flat on my face in front of this big audience in the festival hall or whatever.
Yeah.
But I was just like, oh, fuck it, I'm just going to get back on this. And then the spirit of them seeing me fall so brutally, but then sort of just regardless of that, just kind of carrying on, was just an amazing moment. And the crowd was like, yeah, there's so much more into it. Do you know what I mean? I always remember that back in the day watching Jeff Mills and stuff. Like, he had the records, and it's when they're out and he was moving so quick with the 3 decks or whatever, that stuff was just like, he's fighting it to get it in. It wasn't perfect at all, and that's what you want. You want to see the problem that they're facing, and then when they get through it, you're with them. And then when they conquer it, you're like, yeah, there's a risk, you know.
Exactly.
Like, if you're really pro and the whole show is like seamless and stuff, that's cool. I mean, for some people, they really need that. They need that security. They need a plan, a heavy plan.
Yeah.
I'm definitely not like that. And yeah, sure. I suppose I'm way off the question here, but about albums, I mean, sure, I've been having a hard time justifying making albums. And certainly, I mean, I'm kind of finding my love of Raymond Scott, and you know, for me, a lot of that music is like, when I think of synthesizer music, really modular music, like I just love that tone, and I love that musicality, and I love the idea that these machines can just bring, I don't know, they can bring such a beautiful sound. And I think a lot of it is to do with tape. And this is going to be my point. I'm getting to my point here. And like if you use, I found, a reel-to-reel machine to record your modular, then eventually the tape runs out. So in a way, you've got your timer. You've got your your sand is running down because that tape's going to run out.
Yep.
And then what you got to do is rewind the tape, and then you've got to become the audience, and you listen to what you've done as it's playing back from the tape, and you just have to listen, because on the computer you kind of don't. It's there, and you can jump around. And
Yeah,
you're
you
not
just
in
miss
it.
things quicker.
Yeah, you don't
I
actually
like
have to
that.
listen. You can just jump around, needle drop the whole thing.
Yeah.
Oh, no, this bit was cool. This is a good texture, and it's dangerous because there's some beautiful evolution that can happen in a moment. And just because you skipped to it and you didn't quite love the tone, you might have missed the story leading up to that. So I think that's something I've learned, and I would like to continue, is to use reel to reel, partly because of my love of Raymond Scott and that tone it imparts to modular stuff. I think it's a great marriage.
That
And
makes
also
sense.
just that so much of making music on a modular is editing, at least for me.
It's a good one. It's a good one, Jamie, because in the last few talks, this topic pops up every time. How musicians restrict themselves. Not to make sure you don't get lost in the infinite possibilities.
Especially with modular, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
It's like,
Yeah, no, but that's the one thing. Like the editing with modular, somehow those two it drives me mad. Like I've made it a point to try and have the track done by the time I'm done playing, just so I don't have to start editing the damn thing, because
that's great.
Oh man,
I love that.
but
you've really got that down. This is just like, it's an improvised piece, and you can look at it more in a Sun Ra kind of way of like, you hit record, there's nothing
Take it
wrong.
or leave it.
You can't do anything wrong.
Yeah.
All you can do is have a bad intention and not support the idea. That's doing something wrong. But the music can't go wrong so long as you're there, you're present.
Yeah, that makes sense. And it's actually, that's one of those things. Like right now, I'm trying. Like every day, I am now opening up my setup, and I'm staring at these stems and going like, oh, I could try and make an edit, and then I find out that nothing nothing pans out, and filters just glitching in positions and everything, and just it always ends up sounding worse than where it started. And but it's still one of those things. Like I feel like I have to at least be able to do it, just so I can make like a good solid decision. Like, no, I prefer the original, but I am finding out more and more that I actually suck at editing, and I'm way too ADD to actually give it a solid try. So I just move away from it all the time. But at the same time, I do like what you're saying about the reel-to-reel thing, where it forces you to listen by the time the tape is done. Because
if you have a three-head machine, that's not necessarily true, because you could be spooling it off the other head. I suppose the key is don't do that.
Right.
Because I had a cool engineer I worked with in France, and he had his Pro Tools rig, and he had his old school like Stoor remote.
Mm-hmm.
And instead of just jumping back to the position in the song to mix, he'd like rewind essentially Pro Tools.
Right. Okay.
Like, and the length of time it would have taken for a tape to rewind. And
Oh,
I
really?
said, what the hell are you doing that for? He goes, I got to think. Like, what did I do wrong in that last pass? What did I not like about that? You know? And
Right.
I can't do that if I just jump to that other position. It's too quick.
Yeah.
Sometimes I think the speed of the computer can actually be a hindrance.
That makes total sense.
You need to have, it's the equivalent of getting up from your station and having a walk.
Yeah.
It's like that's not to be undervalued. It's not losing focus. It's actually adding to the longevity of your creative mind. And so similarly, if you've got an opportunity to anything that can maybe in the case of edits, it can be like, I'm going to make 4 edits and then I'm going to leave this, or some weird rules or something. So you just have like, if you are ADD, and I think people who are drawn to modular are kind of insane. So like we're liable to have these things. So maybe we need rules.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm only allowed to spend half an hour on this.
Yeah.
And then I'm gonna actually just do something else. I have to do something else.
Yeah.
Then
Gamify
you just kind
it.
of go, I won't go crazy. It's only half an hour of my life. What's the worst thing that can happen? Doesn't work? No biggie. But anyway.
Yeah, slaving
Well,
over something which is, polishing a third is never gonna work. Like spending too much time, making endless tiny variations on the same thing is not gonna help you make something amazing. By the way, Matthew is waving at us.
Oh no, I was just waving at someone in the.
Okay. Anyway, there was
in the chat. Sorry. It's my own little world then.
Do you make music as well, Matthew? Do you make stuff?
I try. No.
I'll get you out of the way. Sorry.
Oh no. No, definitely. No, I love making music. Whether it's any good or not, it's not. I'm never really that happy with it. I think I'm much better at making modules. But no, I do.
Were you a raver back in the day?
Yeah, a little bit. So I'm sort of mid-40s. So I guess I kind of, I grew up with like Weatherall and like Balearic stuff, and then we all discovered techno, and and then I went to university in Bristol, and
So did I.
Oh, really?
Yeah. What year?
So I must have been like 93 to 95, I guess, around about then.
Same here. 1995.
And what did you do? What did you study? Like, were you doing music?
Physics. I did physics.
I know, I did physics as well.
I did physics, but then I changed.
So we might have been on the same course.
Yeah, I changed to philosophy because I didn't like physics.
Oh, I didn't like physics. I did really badly.
It was terrible. They taught it so badly. I just hated it. So I just went to philosophy. Plus, I was smoking so much weed, I couldn't concentrate on that shit. I just wanted to think and like pretend I knew shit, so philosophy was way better for me. They would actually humour me as I went on rounds. Yeah, but we were there. So you probably at Lakota with me, like. Yeah,
we used to go to Lakota and the one on the boat and down the watershed. Yeah, the Fekla. I think I saw Tekra at the Fekla. And Bandulu. I remember seeing Bandulu. We were smoking with them out the back. That was cool.
Do you remember Sean? Do you remember Cliffy and all of those guys? Oh, I mean, it's supposed to be a different world, but anyway, amazing, man. We were in Bristol the same.
I used to have Portishead's old mixing desk supposedly, because that's when I first got into it. Well, it was sort of before university that I got into sort of like synths and stuff. But
wow.
Yeah, I didn't do very well at university. I was like smart at school and stuff, and I could sort of get away without doing much work and still do well. But that didn't work at university, and I didn't do. I didn't do very well.
I found it overwhelming because I came in and I was well over my head. And that first year of physics, I was like, "This is too crazy for me, man." But but now you're doing practical shit. Like how many people you're really using it?
So how did I get into it? Well, I've always had like a technical background, I guess. And I just
when did you fall in love with synths?
Oh, with synths when I was about sort of 18, 19. I worked all summer and bought I had a 106 first of all, and then I sold that and got a W30 because I wanted a sampler. And the W30 was all I could afford, Man, and then I had some other bits and pieces, and it never sort of like got anywhere. And then after university, I was like, I've got to sort myself out, because it was like the first in my family to go to university, and I didn't, I'd really sort of let myself down, and I kind of just went like on a totally different direction for a good 15 years. Worked really hard. I had another company which did well and stuff, and then I took which was more like software based. And then maybe about just over sort of 10 years ago, I took a bit of a break from that, and I just got totally back into synths. And it was different because I had a little bit more money to spend and whatnot. So, I could get all the things that I sort of dreamt of getting when I was a lot younger. And then I was like, I got like a Dotfa system, and I was like, oh, these don't look that complicated. Like I had a little bit of electronics knowledge and whatnot, and I made like a little sort of standalone 101 sequencer kind of thing, and at the same time I made it's like an early version of Pamela, and I went down to one of the I think it was the first Brighton Modular meets. This was maybe like 8-9 years ago, And I was showing people what I'd made, like, oh, look what I've done, you know, this 101 sequencer. And nobody was into the 101 sequencer. Everyone was into this clock, which wasn't even called Pamela then. And I was like, oh, this, you know, I'll give it a go. I figured out like how I could get like 50 made. And I thought, well, as long as I sell like half of them, I'll be all right. You know, I'll cover myself. Wow. And I can remember driving home from the factory, like the first one, like total buzz, you know, like really, because it was something physical. And then I think they sold out in like the first week. And, you know, first sort of few years, it was kind of like a little side project, but now it's like full on, you know, it's like proper, you know, proper business. Yeah. And I love it, you know, I really do love it, you know.
Yeah. Well, you
see a PAM in most racks you encounter. There's always a PAM somewhere, you know.
Yeah, that's what I was just thinking. Like the Pamela really has become. I don't personally have it, but apart from that, I know everyone that I know has the Pamela as one of their staple modules, basically to clock everything with. It's
yeah, no, the PAM's cool, and we just did like an update. It's been in like this state of status where it was basically full up. There was no more room to put any, and I've done all this crazy stuff to kind of fit more stuff in it. And then, and it's been like that for maybe like 2 years, like nothing new. And then I just stumbled on this thing. It was like a complete fluke, and it freed up like 20% of the space. Oh, wow. And it was like, I thought I dreamt it. So so I added like the quantizer to it, which has come now, and then there's going to be another update in a few weeks time with some other new stuff. So that's really cool. You know, we can keep it going.
Yeah. I was just looking actually, and there's one module you guys made that is actually in each and every patch that I make, and it's probably one of the most important modules in my entire set. But that's the Beast chalkboard.
Yeah, the Beast is.
Just having those two precision adders, the two octavers, is.
Yeah, I love the precision adders. Man.
Oh man, it's the stuff like that just finds its way in everything, all the time. That's I mean, it's
cool.
Maybe we should talk about this the coupe. Is that how you pronounce it now?
Yeah, the coupe, like a car, like a
right.
Yeah, like a two-seater sports car.
Yeah.
I like cars too.
Car. So that's how you would describe it, the two-seater sports car. Yeah, it's like an all-in-one machine kind of approach.
Yeah, and I guess we wanted to do like
a starter kit or something.
Yeah, but we wanted to do something a bit more different to what was it? Well, I guess everyone would say that, but I guess I wanted more sort of like we wanted to do a complete system because we had enough stuff, but I wanted to do something that kind of took a more kind of like modern approach. Rather than it sort of being totally bleepy bloppy, you know, it's got the and quite kind of like self-contained with a squid and then a lot of stuff. The squid, the sampler module, then with like the PAM and the Mega Slope to do sequencing and then like a VCO and a VCF. So you've got everything there, but it's kind of immediate, but it still takes kind of a little bit of playing around. You know, it's quite flexible, but not in kind of the most kind of like obvious way, I guess. I don't know. It was kind of like a set of modules that we'd been playing around with, and we were like, yeah, these work really well together, you know, and it can be kind of like reasonably affordable. You know, we wanted to get it like as affordable as we could. That's the sort of sucky thing about modular, is it's really expensive, you know. And I think that's kind of really limits its you know, reach, I guess.
Yeah.
But you know, and there's not much we can do about that. Yeah.
So I'm always wondering, you know, when I'm behind my modular, there's always a moment when I think, I should really have a module that does this, and I don't have it, you know. And then I go on Modular Grid, and voila, somebody's already had the idea. How do you decide with so many choices and so many things already out there what your new thing is going to be?
I normally go on my modular as well, and I'm like, oh, I wish I had something that did this. Then I could make that track. Then it would happen. Yeah. And then I spend the next 6 months, year making it, and then you know, it's the same thing. I'm just sort of anything. It's definitely like a need of things that I would like that I don't see. And then I'm trying to do things that aren't maybe that obvious or something that's done in kind of like a different way. You know, like I guess we kind of have sort of staples like things like the Beast or like the Tangle, which are kind of like just kind of like basic things like staples, I guess, but they're done in kind of like a nice kind of way, hopefully. And then there's things like the Squid or the Akemis that are things that was put like a hell of a lot of effort into and are very original. And, you know, there'll be things that there isn't anything out there like them. You know, it might be in how they work, or it could be like how they sound, whatever, or a combination of the two, you know. But ultimately it'll be something that I want. It'll be something, you know, I'll be making, like I'm the kind of like the first customer. Right. You know, or it's kind of like maybe a friend that harasses me all the time saying, I really need this module. I really need this module. Please make it.
Yeah, that makes
sense. Until I'm broken down. But also I start a hell of a lot of things and they don't get finished, you know, or they get left and then I come back to them like 2 years later and finish them, you know. It's to get
to all of us, I guess.
Yeah. It takes like a hell of a lot of effort to get something from kind of like an idea of, I wish I had that, to it kind of like, you know, being in the stores, whatever. And you know, I also just try and stick to just doing things that I would like, you know, rather than getting too like, oh, these are selling really well, I must make one of these, you know, that kind of thing. Yeah. Like I suppose there is a little bit of that. Like there's going to be, you know, once it becomes like a business and whatnot, but it's definitely kind of like ultimately stuff that I want, and then I hope that other people will enjoy, you know. And we follow like kind of a strict set of kind of rules, I guess, you know, in terms of like visually and how they work. I always want them to be kind of easy to use and very kind of immediate, you know, right, but also kind of surprising as well at the same time. You know, I don't want people to necessarily have to go and read the manual to get kind of like 80% out of the module. You know,
that's very true about important. The stuff you were doing. Yeah, it's very true for the modules you are doing. It's very immediate and very clear. The layout is also very clear. It's really instant.
Yeah. Like even with the PAMs, like I think the PAM you can pick up. Like people sometimes complain that it's menu driven, but you know, you pick it up in like 2 minutes. You know, And the Squid as well it was kind of like deliberately very kind of immediate and very kind of like instantly playable as soon as it sort of comes out the box. There's no kind of like, oh, I must line this sample up and, you know, oh, where's that, you know, like the sort of horrific kind of like old Roland samplers, like some of the old racked Roland samplers where you know, it takes you like 3 hours just to get a sample to a MIDI note, because it's like, you know, just all these kind of layers of complexity.
I wish someone would do like a bit of software though that was, you know, allowing you to make cues easier in audio files, you know what I mean? Like, cause I know in Ableton and in Pro Tools you can't add those to a WAV, so you know what I mean? That would
mean a marker?
Markers.
Yeah, that can be, you know, imported into the Morphogene, into Squid, and to. It's the
standard. Do you use a Mac or PC?
I use Mac.
Yeah, I use this software called Wave Twister. It's really good for markers. It's like fantastic.
Get that to try it. Yeah,
that's really good with the markers.
What do you mean, Jamie? That you can just put the markers in sound files that your granular or whatever module picks up as a starting point or something. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, I mean the Squid and, you know, the assimilator and like Morphogene, and a lot of people have the markers in the WAVs embedded, right? But you can only do that if you have Reaper or if you use Wave Twist or whatever. I just wish it was a bit more ubiquitous.
There's another program called OCEN Audio, which is Windows and Mac, and that's free, and that does it really easily. That does it nicely as well.
Does it do auto?
I don't think it does. I don't think it does auto, but Wave Twister does the auto really good.
Does it?
Yeah, and you can just like split whole files on that, like and you can do batch stuff with Wave Twister, and it's really nice for that kind of thing. It looks a bit funny, but once you start using it, no, but I know what you mean. It looks a bit like, you know, Windows 95-ish.
Yeah,
but it's really nice. I have to? No, honestly, it's really well done. I know that the icons but it does work really well. It's
and I
really
do
well
need a
thought
batch
out.
processor too. That's like a serious pet peeve of mine. I just won't spend money on Barber Batch, and I used to use this program called Myriad, but they were all bought out. And there's also another one that Richard Devine told me about, Sound Miner or something.
I don't know.
But it's like $800 or something. It's crazy, and I just want it for batch processing. So if there's another batch processor I'm not aware of, comments, crew, what's going on? But what do you use for batch processing out there? But yeah, I used to love Barber Batch. But yeah, all that stuff.
Barber Batch is the only one I know of, to be honest. It does pretty much everything.
Wave Twister.
It is good, honestly.
Yeah.
It's cheap as well.
I like that. Should be a marketing slogan. It looks a bit funny. Sounds great. It looks a bit funny. Don't we all?
Yeah, I'm so used to like funny looking programs though, like the PCB design programs are like. Oh.
But you're a programmer, Matthew. You probably don't really care about GUIs and shit, do you?
Oh no, I do definitely. Yeah.
The aesthetic on modules is top notch. The grey on the coupe, man, is.
Oh, thank you.
It's premium. That's a nice grey. How do you find your grey?
I have like this pad of with like RAL colours. Yeah, and I was like, oh, that one's nice.
It's a really good grey. I mean,
somebody says it's called Twisted Wave.
Oh, Twisted Wave. Oh,
yeah,
sorry.
I don't know.
I think they're probably right. I'm terrible with names of things.
Yeah. That's fine. But now we can all Google it, I guess.
Yeah. It'll probably auto-complete now, just as you put Twister in, because so many people will be searching for it. Yeah, it's Twisted Wave. TwistedWave.com.
There it is.
Also available for iPhone and iPad, I see.
Is it really?
Yeah. It looks a little bit funny on them as well by the looks of it.
Yeah, no, that's it. No, I do love my squid. I've got a squid in the Pams. But
Cool.
I would definitely get chalkboard. You doing a new one?
No, I don't know. The chalkboard's kind of done. Yeah, the bow tie. The bow tie's like our worst seller, so that's why we only did 100. But the new one's a lot better. I've got a new one here. Here's a new one. It's just got like extra modes.
I never actually really looked at the bow tie.
No, what's the vibe?
So
what is it?
It's like a bi-directional switch. So you've got like you got an in there, and then you got a number of outs there, but signals can be routed either way.
Oh,
so
it's a sequential switch.
Yeah, but it can be this. The original is like an address switch, but this can be an address switch where the voltage sets where it goes, or it can be a sequential switch, or it can be like a strobe switch.
That actually sounds very interesting.
Do love the switches.
Yeah, there's a really nice video that Zach did, and that's coming out as well, and that shows it off really nicely. But that should be like properly launched at the end of the week, beginning of next.
CV addressable switch like that's like more simple than the muck slicer is welcome. Much as I love that muck slicer.
Yeah, I don't know the muck slicer. Like, I think the problem with the address switches is they only make kind of like a lot of sense on a big system, I think, where you've got like a lot of sources and stuff. I don't know.
But with the squid, it's really cool, you know. You can spray the squid. I mean, spray the squid. It looks a bit funny, but it smells a bit funny. But I did that by accident the other day. We were using the muck slicer or whatever in that mode where it was CV addressed.
I've got a Google the muck slicer now.
It was just spraying notes at the sampler. And it was so machine. It was so like hard. It was like a really crazy way to sequence. And I was like,
I see.
I've got to do this again.
Bufacco.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. It's a really powerful piece, but it's tricky. It's beautiful, but I like a more simple one, just the way you can just kind of go damn, because I've got like 3 of those Derpfler sequential switches.
Mm-hmm.
And I miss the CV address because sometimes
that makes sense.
Yeah, it's sequencing then, isn't it?
No, it's what the Dupler switch really is kind of like your train tracks where you're just really going either go left or right, but it's not something where you really go complex with. But
exactly,
I basically just use it to make loops longer. So instead of having just like a 16
totally
beat loop
the
or something, you
use
just
of like pressure points or whatever.
Right? Yeah, exactly. It's just but it's kind of a set and forget thing. It's not the type of switch that you really program and do super complex timing things with and stuff like that.
Well, you'd have to hit it, like, if you wanted it to sort of be a bit more random, you'd have to hit it with like little bursts of notes to kind of, do you know what I mean?
Right.
Flick it through the states so they didn't feel sequential. So they would like,
yeah, that makes sense.
Kind of like you'd have to have a burst generator or something to create randomness, maybe.
Well, actually, it was something I was thinking about last week, because I was actually looking at my system, going like, "Hey, I would actually like to work with more sequential switches for a couple of things," and I was kind of thinking like, if you have a couple of those super simple sequential switches in sequence of one another, you can kind of make those things where you kind of enter something in the first switch and have it be processed and find its own way through a whole network of different switches, and that way kind of, well, yeah, it's not random, but it's so complex that it might as well be. So you can get some interesting things done that way.
You always come up with these ideas where you need 10 of the same modules.
I should come up with some of them.
No, but it's at some point you just start thinking in batches, just like, let me just think about the next bucket of things, and it's I don't know.
You're right. You're right.
It's like stuff like that tends to happen, kind of. But yeah, then again, I got like 60, 70 voices here to feed, so it's at some point it starts making sense to do it in big chunks like that, but it's
someone says macro control, and that's
yes, macro control. That's one of the topics that we are discussing a lot.
I think
with
that's my major one as well. I got really jealous because I interviewed a guy called William Fields. You guys familiar with that guy?
Oh yeah.
Fields OS.
Yeah.
Just a great
generative music.
Yeah,
generative
fantastic.
Guy,
And I got jealous because his whole system is in an iPad essentially. Well, he controls Reaper from a custom Lima interface on his iPad.
Nice.
And he can just do things like, I just want at certain points just to press a button and then all of my envelopes and all of my sounds become snappy.
Nice.
I was like, in Modular, that's a real ball ache. I mean, it's so hard to do.
Well, William Fields, isn't that the one that you were playing me when we were driving back? Yeah, exactly. The one with the whole AI.
Yeah, it's fantastic. He's amazing. He's so good. And the visuals are great too.
Yeah, that's cool stuff. It's,
but that you know what I mean? That just made me think, to do it, I could, if I wanted to send the same envelope to loads of destinations, I might use something like a DivKids mute and just send, and have two of them. Well, watch out.
This is one of those macro control experiments that popped up. Exactly for that whole purpose of like,
right.
Well, yeah, everyone has built sequencers by now, and people are always trying to make that one module that is kind of that star player of your entire system. But by the time you have this monster setup where everything is its own star player and stuff, you still only have two hands, and you want to control them all. So we kind of, this was kind of one of those things where I called the guys from Bird Kids to make a very limited batch just for me of a concept I had in mind, where it's basically 16 CV offsets in rows of 4, and each of those has a group offset going plus and minus 10, and there's a master offset for everything controlling all those 4 groups. And then basically by having 4 of these, I can with one knob control 64 filters or voices or whatever I want.
And what's so funny about that is that's exactly what Raymond Scott was doing in the late 50s.
Right.
Or like the early 60s. His Electronium was totally like that, I think. It had like the big global controllers because he was coming at it from an arranger point of view.
Yeah, well, exactly.
It's make that stuff happen now.
Yeah.
I want these voices snappy, like all of them.
And but that makes sense. It's
like you. He was dealing with a huge amount of them.
No, but
So
that's the entire
great.
thing. Is like all the time when playing with these things, you must kind of know the feeling. Like, okay, so at the next break or drop or whatever that's gonna happen, I want to mute that kick. I want to open up those filters, close down those filters, switch over to that sequence, and do it all if I can. With just 2 hands, and how am I gonna prepare this? You know.
And some people are saying, like someone in the comment, Puck is saying, what about the Polyend preset? You guys check that?
The Polyend preset, actually.
I do have one.
Let me look at it. Just
it does stores CV basically on pads.
Right.
It stores the state of 9 CVs, and it can morph between them, which is quite nice. You can do a sort of slew.
That's interesting.
It's good. It's
cool.
good in that way. For some reason, I just didn't love interacting with it.
Right.
I don't know why. It just didn't. Yeah, and maybe it doesn't have knobs. Maybe it doesn't have.
No.
You know, it doesn't just. You can't.
Yeah.
Pressing the button is a bit weird.
But that's kind of the thing, is that you, from the looks of this, you would have to prepare.
You do
those
you have
points.
To prepare, that's right.
And that's the thing. Like, I don't want to actually have to prepare them. I want to be able to make them in a snap decision.
I think that's the thing. You want to play the macro.
Yeah.
You want to play it.
Exactly.
And it's quite precise with the preset. You have to sort of. I don't know if you guys got a catalyst or that like crossfader. Because I like to use that crossfader to do like polyphonic chordal transitions.
Nice.
But you have to be so careful. Obviously, because it's pitch CV and it's quite a range.
Yeah.
It will let you do it. It's got 10-bit precision or something. It's good. But you've got to be patient, because like the slightest wrong move and it's way off, and it's just like, it would be nice if it was just, playable.
I'm Googling things while you're talking about them, by the way. But the catalyst. This is actually, isn't that the crossfader thing?
I love that thing.
That's the recent one, right? I think Kipski is. Have you ever looked into DJ Kipski? What he's doing?
No.
He is. He used to be like an amazing, really a battle DJ almost kind of stuff. So really scratching everything is this thing, and he really dove into this thing called synthase. Or is it synthtablism? I don't know if you've seen that happening.
No, what the hell is that?
Well, basically, it is people who are controlling their Eurorack synths by scratching into it. So with I don't know if it's Serato or something else, but he's really controlling it with his turntable.
Great.
And it sounds fantastic. It's absolutely amazing.
So hang on, is that thing that you did, Matthew? Didn't you do like a kind of a sync kind of thing? I remember you did it something at Super Booth with Ben Divkey, like showing off like how you could sync a Pioneer to your Euro.
Oh, like the discotheque.
Yeah.
We haven't. Yeah, it's kind of on the shelf, that one at the moment.
It looked good. It looked a good idea.
Yeah, I think it. Yeah, I don't know if it's quite for us. I don't know. Like, you played with one, didn't you? You got some. You have one for a bit? Yeah.
And send me one. Yeah, I've been testing it. Yeah, I mean it works great. But if you use it with multiple decks, you get the handover of the sync moments when it starts choking a little bit.
Makes sense.
And the thing is, there's no coming back from that. There's no restart or no sort of save all button, like a rescue me button.
It's a nice idea.
But for as long as you have, it's basically follows the grid perfectly. But as soon as you start to use 4 decks and get really busy on
I think also something that we found with it was like I think like when we designed it like for modular, and it was kind of like, we might as well just put on a MIDI clock as well. Because when you run it through PAM in the modular, you can kind of like relock it, you can drop it out and bring it back in again just by hitting the start stop on the PAM. But of course you can't do that with a MIDI. And when we sent it out to lots of different people, and it was like 50% of people absolutely loved it, and the other 50% of people were like, well, it's all right, I wish it would do this. And it seemed that like everybody kind of used the Pioneers differently. I'm not really. Well, I'm not a DJ at all. You know, especially not like a pioneer DJ. You know, and
Totally.
so I'm not sort of like I've never been like 100% confident with it. And I kind of like got busy with other stuff like the squid and whatnot. So it kind of got shelved, and it's something that I want to get back to. But at the same time, I sort of worry that it will just turn into like, I'm sure it would sell very well, but at the same time, I worry that it would just turn into like a complete support nightmare, you know, because it's almost like a different audience for us as well, you know?
Yeah. But I do like, hey, I just wanted to say, is that the grey, Matthew?
The grey.
That mug.
Oh, no. This is actually blue. This is actually a bluey grey. This is an Italia finish grey. That just got delivered. Did you see that just appear?
I just like that. Yeah, I like that. What else is going to appear? Pot noodles.
No, probably not much more than the cup of tea. I have one cup of tea a day, and it's at 9 o'clock.
Do you really?
Yeah.
Seriously? A night tea?
A decaf tea.
Wow, you're sensitive.
Yeah, I can't drink coffee like past 5-6 o'clock. I drink.
Well, you're handling small components. I suppose any jitter isn't acceptable.
Yeah. I'm a bit crap with my hands anyway. You know, like, but I manage.
What about you two? You like coffee fiends? I think I saw
in the
you,
morning,
Colin,
yes.
at a studio, like downing about a gallon of coffee.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's
That's me too.
oh man, it's kind of like this jet fuel, especially waking up. That's always, I kind of make like a liter of coffee just for me, and
Yeah, modular coffee dispenser needed.
oh man, it's
I've heard
actually
of drummers on tour like they took their own coffee machine like and had it like next to their rig. quick in a break, just quick little espresso like
nice
while the guitar solo's happening.
That's
but yeah,
actually still something I want to do is hook up an espresso machine to a servo motor and just kind of make a logic patch to dispense me coffee every 2 hours or something. But it's,
yeah. Oh man. We did have a question about that console behind you there.
Oh yeah. It's an old DDA desk.
Oh, DDA. Wow. Yeah, that's taking me back.
Yeah, it's been with me for a long time, and then at some point I was working on a 5.1 project, you know, surround sound, and I thought I was ready to go digital. I don't know where that idea came from, but anyway, I bought a digital desk, you know, to be able to do panning, and you know, I thought this is the future, this blah blah blah. And the moment I got it, I hated it. You know, I've always hated it, instant hate. And I sold this one, and I wanted it back. But I sold it to a guy in Berlin, and he didn't want to sell it back to me. So I forgot about it and kind of started working in the box more. You know, not really, trying to forget about analog mixing and stuff like that. And at some point, I found out that it was sold to someone else, and I got their contacts and called them up and said, do you still have this DDA desk? And yeah, we're selling it because we are going digital. I said, okay, give it to me. Nice. So it's back at my place now. But it's it's cool. It doesn't really has a very special sound. It's a very straightforward one. There's a cool matrix in the middle, and it has plenty of channels. I don't always use it, but it's
I love consoles.
Yeah,
I always try to live without one. And like I've just got, for ages on the road, I had like this Midas Venice, whatever. That was my console. I just like the look of it. I could move quick on it, and I've kept it. It's got a couple of broken direct outs, whatever. I'll just put it back into a little. I got like another studio. I got my main one, and then there's one behind. You can see a little barefoot there. There's like another studio.
Nice.
Over there, and that's got that console now set up. and it's just got my SP1200 and a bunch of stuff that I never really could integrate into this room just because of the size problems. And man, it's been fun. Just routing effects onto the board and just, you know, recording stuff back in off the console, and it's just like, man, it's so beautiful. I just love the
it's
console.
cool. You can
So
if you have
good.
your effects return on normal channels rather than on effect returns, you can EQ them and then send them back to themselves or to each other.
That's what it's all about,
amazing.
isn't it? That's what it's all about. I mean, I think in a way, that's sort of what made me want to get into modular in the first place, is like doing that with effects units back in the day. It's kind of like that's the same kind of rush that you get trying to control a modular system, isn't it? It's just like trying to play that console and ride
very
it
hands-on.
and really get in there and express yourself and work out what works and what doesn't, and feeding EQs into themselves. Like especially passive EQs, that can be amazing. Create crazy bass. Like, and because you can only do it when it's analog, because any kind of way in and out, you've got latency, some kind of latency.
Yep.
You just can't have that for things like feeding an EQ into itself. Because I saw Steve Albini do that with one of those Massenburg EQs, where he does something when he's working with a band and he wants the bass drum to be longer. He'll set up a real strong cue, like a really narrow boost at like 50 hertz or whatever, and just feed that EQ back into itself.
So basically, he's just pinging filters,
He's
but
pinging,
then the pro audio version of doing that. That's
which sounds amazing. It sounds super good.
Yeah.
And so it just elongates the bass drum because, you know, it's got more resonance in that frequency.
Yeah.
And pings. It's just pinging, and just all of that is just fascinating and great. But and I just set it up to the point when, because I got one of those AD DAC kind of patch bays, which just has like, you know, the mini jacks on it.
Right, yeah.
Which I was just like, this is what I've been looking for. I just love this, because then it's just all about ergonomics, isn't it? The speakers are there, the modular's here, but I just don't want to mess around with like just converting cables and finding a cable, and that just takes you out at the moment, doesn't it?
You mean the mini jack to quarter-inch ones, right? The little ones with 3 conversion blocks on it.
Oh, really? Are they special?
No, I'm thinking that's the one you mean, right? The ADDIC.
It's just got regular mini jacks on the front and jacks. It's got both.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. You can use mono cables, as far as I know, the TS ones. I have been. It's working fine. But it's just been a joy. I've just been loving it. I've just been thinking, I don't know, I wish I had more of that over in my other studio, but then, you can't have it all, can you? But it made me just realise that sometimes you've really got to just have little systems that can get you to the place. But then I was trying to control this tape machine, and all I needed was an LFO with an attenuator on it, just to control the speed of this tape machine, because it has a CV input. And I was like, I don't have, in this little skiff thing, a way of generating attenuation on a bloody LFO, you know? And so I was just like, I'm going to need to bring over another module, and it's just like, damn, you just want convenient as Eurorack is, it's like the amount of times that you have to reconfigure a system is kind of infuriating, isn't it? If you've got that if you've already got that ADD kind of mindset, you look at your system and go, let me just change the order of all the things again. And then you're just like, what am I doing? It was fine. But then what do you do? If you're quite alright with it, then do you have to buy another whole thing just to shove it all in? I mean, obviously, I don't. Colin, I think you might have the most modules.
It's on that front. Like right now, if you go to, if you would walk into my, well, it's not even a studio anymore, but kind of my storage locker, you would really just see a couple of empty cases and crates upon crates with just single modules in there. And that was from the last time when I had like, you know what, I'm going to reorganize everything. And I just took a screwdriver and screwed everything out in one of those brain farts. Like, yeah, you know what, I'm just going to do it.
Holy
And then like
shit.
1.5 hours later, I'm looking at my room and there's like I think 6,000 HP of modules just laying there, and I'm going like, oh my god, what have I done? And it's every time it happens like that. Like I think it's a brilliant idea to reorganize everything, and then like 2.5 weeks later, I haven't put them back in place yet, and I'm going like, why am I doing this? So it's
but someone did mention a VCV rack, of course, which is a great idea. I should have totally done that. I'm going to do that.
VCV Rack. That's actually that's the funny thing is I tried playing with VCV just the other day, and it's the standard thing that I'm recommending to everyone whenever they ask me like, hey, so how do I get started with modular? I'm always saying like, well, start with VCV because it's cheap if not free, and it gets you everything at your fingertips, and you'll learn about modular workflow. The only thing is then I tried playing with it myself not long ago, and I couldn't get any normal patch to work, and that wasn't because I didn't understand the patch flow or anything, but it was mostly because all of a sudden I was forcing myself to work in a computer again, and that's the part that I've completely just lost.
Or Ableton has the CV tools.
Yeah.
Which is probably more the way I'd do it. Because I'm going to have Ableton up to record anyway, so I'm going to go, I need an LFO. Just whap one up, and I think my interface is DC coupled, so...
I heard Bitwig actually has a couple of very interesting ways of interfacing with modular now.
Do you have a PAMs in VCV, Matthew?
No.
Do they approach you for that kind of stuff?
I got approached once by, not VCV, but it was someone doing commercial modules, but I don't know, it doesn't really... I think VCV is cool for like people getting into it, but at the same time, I don't like the way that they kind of take this kind of physical interface and kind of put it into the computer, you know, like it just doesn't, kind of like what Colin was saying, it's like do something modular but don't make it like the physical thing, you know, like more like how that alto, you know, that alto reverb, how that works, that kind of thing. If you're gonna patch in a computer, use Max or something, I don't know. You know, like that's not to like slag off VCV, because I think it's definitely a cool piece of software and stuff, and it's great for people to try, and people obviously like it, but for me, I don't know, it just doesn't excite me. I kind of, if I made like a PAM for it or something, I guess I'd have like something that you typed in, you know, you'd type in what you wanted or something, like to me that sounds like it would work faster, you know, rather than kind of like trying to dial a thing with the you know like, almost like a sort of command line interface. I don't know, I'd love it, but I don't know if other people would.
True.
I've heard people say that PAMs doesn't love being like you know, not the boss clock.
It's slave.
Is that true?
Well, I think it was I don't know, it's really, it sort of depends what you sync it to, I guess. If you sync it to something solid, then you shouldn't have any problems at all.
Right.
Yeah,
Like
I've used it as a slave, it works fine.
Yeah, like I've always, like in my studio, I run it off the Circlon. I never have any problems. You know, I just run it off the Circlon, didn't
Oh,
sync.
you got a Circlon?
Yeah. I've got one of the
so have I. Just
one of the
got
first ones. I kind of hate it.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm with you.
Yeah, it's kind of amazing for some things and absolutely stupid for others.
Yeah, and it's
like,
one of those boxes. If you walk away from it for a few months, you're like, oh, how the fuck do I
that's the thing, man. Exactly.
duplicate the bar length? Fuck.
I've tried to make it the heart of my system, and it still isn't. Although I've had it for 3 years now or something, and as much as I would love to have everything done from there, it's still not in that sort of place. You know what I mean? But it's very powerful, and I like the feel of the machine itself.
Yeah, definitely
solid.
Definitely.
You know, nice big buttons. You know,
it feels
good.
great. It's almost sort of like, do you just sort of go, all right, I'm just using it as a big 909, because you feel a bit guilty because it's so expensive, and you're sort of like, you're just doing kind of rudimentary step sequencing, but it's kind of like, but it's fun, and it's sort of like half the time that's kind of what you want to do anyway.
The thing I really love about is the timing. The timing is absolutely rock solid. It's really good, and the other thing, of course, you can keep it as simple as you would on a 909-ish sequencer, but it's very simple to make it do way more complex things very quickly. So it's
and the delays that are really well integrated, like, you know, just like note push and pull, that kind of stuff is not to be underestimated. It's so clear on the Circulon. I just love that.
Do you find though, as soon as you want to do anything with chords or anything that's like beyond like like it's amazing for like drum loops and for like simple lines, but when it comes to like structuring a song or chords, especially editing chords, it's like painting the house through the letterbox. Yeah,
then you really feel like it's a clunky old box. But at the same time, what I really love to do on it is I don't use the polyphonic patch mode. I just use the brute force drum mode, mode, then just add the auxes.
But even then I find it quite
it doesn't playing like that because the note stealing is so cool.
I just find it frustrating that it wouldn't take much to make it so much better, for that kind of thing. Like, so I
help him out.
Well, no, I have moaned at him about this at Super Booth.
I would like to see that. I would like to see that.
Oh no, not in like a, it's like not it's like it's amazing piece of hardware, not in like a, and I think like I love it because you can just plug it in and start playing away, and the computer doesn't need to be on. No, but then I'll use, and the computer just becomes like a glorified tape recorder, basically,
it's
Logic,
and then it's relegated to that task. It's like, it's like we're all celebrating when the computer's just recording in the background, hopefully not fucking it up and stopping and stuff. You had one job.
Mine died the other day as well. It lost its memory. I got really scared. I was like, my heart was like,
computer dementia. Yeah,
but it was okay. It was okay.
That's why reel to reel. Then you don't even need any of that.
I've got an old supposedly it's ecstasy, this reel to reel I've got, powered by 24 volts because that's what the tanks had on them, and they'd use it for it's got a Telefunken head on it though, so it's supposedly really high quality. It is lovely. It's stereo.
They're all hard to find and expensive now.
I got this from like an audio fair, and it was and I got it like relatively cheap, and I was like, the guy was like, no, you'll love it. It's like you could throw it against the wall and it would be fine. I took it to bits and he was like, I've never seen electronics like it. It's just like, I've got to try, and I think it's a Telefunken M1 or
it is a Telefunken then.
Yeah, I think they made it, but then they licensed it to I'll see if I can find her.
Not you, her. No, I'm thinking.
But then, Jamie, when you're talking reel-to-reel recording, are you doing multi-track on it, or is it you're just going straight to stereo? Mono, even.
Only mono, yeah.
Nice. Okay.
Well, yeah, because I've got like the an Ampex reel-to-reel that was like a kind of. It's in a leather case. It's really funny. It's like called the 601. It's like, and being in America, you can find those things. They're kind of harder to find in Europe. But I got and then the Nagra. Mine's the mono Nagra.
Interesting. Nice.
Yeah, stereo would be good. And I for the stereo, I might use the Nakamichi cassette. Yeah. But I have my Nakamichi modified so I could change the pitch as I'm recording and disable the erase head with the switch. But the problem with that is when I come to play back the tape, it's not the original speed anymore. It's like it screwed it up. Even if I center the speed and record in the center, it comes back all wonky. So yeah, the Nakamichi's got it's not perfect. But yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I haven't found my ideal reel-to-reel, to be honest.
Okay.
I would like to get one that I can really lean on for the hi-fi.
Nice.
Something like an ATR or something really obnoxious.
No, it's like I used to own one of those Otari M090s. The 90 Mark II, and
people love those.
Oh man, that was fantastic. I mean, that was 24 tracks on 2-inch, and
did it sound good?
It sounded fantastic. It was.
Was it loud mechanically?
It is like. Are you talking noise floor wise, or is it
just the machine driving around? The sound.
Oh, the machine itself. It's not bad actually. It's the loudest sound.
Fans.
Actually, is the no, actually all that stuff was pretty decent.
Yeah, that's a pet peeve. I can't handle machine noise.
No, that makes sense. It's like in the studio that I was running it in, I had a Trident 80 desk. And
Sweet.
and I had
good
that
stuff.
paired up to the Otari, and that was just a match made in heaven.
Isn't
It sounded so good.
nice? I remember the first time me
That's a
and Christian,
romantic setup.
me and
Oh,
Chris,
man, it was-
yeah, I got
Yeah.
the Siemens console, I got the Siemens Citral, and I got the Telefunken
Nice.
M15 8-track,
Yeah.
1-inch. And I remember
Sweet.
me and Christian Vogel were doing the second Super Collider album, Raw Digits, and we're doing it at the Funk House. I had a studio in the Funk House
Nice. Yeah.
from about 2001 maybe to
Mhm.
2005, and yeah, we recorded. We thought, let's just do one song on the Telefunken, you know, and the console, and we at the time
Yeah.
we were using a Motu 828, you know, that was like
Yeah.
the highest shit we could afford, and what
Nice.
we had. It we were just floored. We were like, what have we
Yeah.
been doing?
Yeah,
Listen
you
to
do.
this. It sounds absolutely beautiful. Like, it
Yep.
sounds incredible.
Yeah,
Like,
no,
it
but
was
that's
just-
I
the
would say that tape machines from any quality can really
Yeah.
liven up your sound. You
Oh,
know?
man.
I even
Oh,
got
for
like
sure.
these really cheap
Yeah.
small ones. You like a four. You know these
Yeah.
what is it? Tascam? Yeah, Tascam
Yeah.
4-track.
Yeah, the
cassette
Tascam
player.
ones is actually, that one is super cool. The Revox ones are, I
Yeah,
still
the
love
V7
them
I never
actually.
cassette
sold
one.
my Revox,
It's,
but that's what I used
yeah.
in Brighton. You live in
Yeah.
Brighton, Matthew?
No. I live sort of Surrey, basically.
Oh,
Surrey.
nice.
I live in Surrey. Yes.
Oh, Leatherhead?
Nice.
Yes. Not far from Leatherhead, actually.
My dad had a house
Five-
in Leatherhead.
5 minutes down the road, Leatherhead.
Really?
is.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
See, I know that neck of the
Yeah.
woods. Yeah, I
Yeah,
mean, it's
nice.
true. Oh man, I had the Revox in Brighton. And
Nice.
back in those days, man, like, you know, that Revox, it was cheap as chips. And I remember I got a Grampian spring reverb off a dude that was selling loads of stuff, like an older guy. He was a friend of a guy in my band at the time, and I got a Grampian and an Orban spring reverb, and I got this beautiful Rhodes 88, and like I sold it, most of it, to Peaches when I left Berlin to come to America.
Right.
But the Grampian was sort of taken from me because the guy I was renting my studio off in Berlin didn't pay the rent, and like the guy took my Grampian, my original S950,
Oh shit.
my first ever
Oh,
acoustic guitar, like a bass, a Korg M1. For some reason at the time I wasn't that bothered about it, and then
Yeah.
recently I thought, I'll get one of those Grampians again. I really love that thing. I got it for like 25 quid. They're like
Yeah.
$2.5 grand now.
That's crazy.
And I
Yeah.
had one of those BX20 AKGs in Berlin. I bought it for €300. Now they're like $5 grand or something. You know, it's
Yeah.
just like, what is going
No,
on?
things have
dude?
things have really
blame
skyrocketed on that
Reverb,
front.
man. Blame Reverb because they're making all this old
Yeah.
nostalgic stuff
For
totally
sure.
hip
But
again,
a spring reverb, you can't sell that for $2.5 grand. I'm sorry. It's
Yeah.
a fucking spring reverb.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a spring. Like, it really
Yeah.
upsets me when people like upsell that stuff, like a Klon, like guitar pedal
Yeah.
or something. It's just like, it's not right, you know. I
Yeah,
have
it's
to draw
like,
the
um,
line.
Well, on that same front, like I still own one tape machine right now, which is a Studer A80 half-inch machine.
Oh, wow.
Just
Oh,
a
wow,
2-track. And
Big
I got that
beast.
one for it was a super good deal on it. I think I paid something like $1,000 or something on it, and that was
Yep.
10 years ago. And I was watching online somewhere because someone said like, hey, there's actually someone selling one of those machines that you have right now, and they wanted to verify with me whether or not it would be a good price. And I was like, hey, so what's the asking price? And they said like, well, it's €7,500 for that thing. And I was just like, no way, that cannot be true. But then turns out that's actually what those things are doing right now. And I don't know what happened over the past 10 years, but apparently...
I think it's true for most classic machines. Since the same thing, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's,
remember the Jupiter 8? We're old enough to remember you get a
Oh,
Jupiter
yeah.
8 for 300 quid or whatever.
Yeah.
But that's 300. I don't know if I ever see one for 300.
Really?
Like they've always been.
Even
They've
back
always
in the
been.
day?
Jupiter 8's always been pretty expensive.
I think Neil Landstrom, he got one like super cheap. I don't know. Yeah. But there was
Crazy.
a time, wasn't there, in the late 90s or something like that.
That
Yeah,
was
Jamie.
I got my ARP 2600 for today's money, probably €500. Same for same
That's
for
beautiful, though. Every now and again
EMS
you get-
Synthi, same thing, you know, like really cheap. Oh,
Yeah, well done.
That
you
is
know.
just Whoa.
That's
They're
right.
still being used still here, still amazing though. I mean,
Right.
they're incredible
Yeah,
machines.
they are amazing.
Yeah.
I love them too. Is that what happened to you, Matthew? Obviously, you started with your W30 and all that, but surely you must have got some juicy analog stuff a bit later.
Yeah, you know, I just got. It's a Telefunken M36. I looked. It's
cool.
but Google it. They're wicked. If you ever see one, like I don't know how rare they are.
Yeah, they're quite hard to find in
LR36, you said?
America. It's the kind of thing you get in Germany, but
Yeah, I think they'd be easy to find in Germany.
yeah, you can't get them out here. No one has Telefunken out here. If they do, it's like wildly expensive. Plus, that's why I didn't ship my M15 over, because it's like a ton. It's the heaviest thing I've ever lifted. It's just a brutal thing. And when I was moving out of the studio in Berlin, my friend was trying to help me out, and he cut the cord. He had to cut the machine out, so he cut the actual multi-core in half. So so someone's got to reconnect it all, and whatever. It's not for me.
Yeah, someone said a Jupiter 8 for $1,000 in the late 80s. $1,000 in the late 80s was a lot of money still, wasn't it? Right?
Yeah, no, maybe I'm tripping then.
I got my 101 for 75 quid. Must have been late 80s, early 90s, and that was a lot of money then. Like a 101 goes for like over $1,000 now, doesn't it? I think, which is a bit crazy.
Yeah, it goes way more than $1,000.
Yeah, but I think you can still. I've still found some good You can still find things, if you look. You can still.
What are the hidden gem synths?
Well, I like sort of, there's a lot of sort of early digital stuff out there, which is good, which people don't. I guess it's.
Kawaii.
Yeah, that's all right. I have like a couple of synergies. One's broken, one works fine.
Synergy, I don't know those.
So Synergy was like a really early digital synth that came out of Bell Labs, and it's basically what Wendy Carlos used on like the Tron soundtrack.
Shit.
And it basically it came out. It does FM, but they couldn't advertise it as FM because it was around the same time that Yamaha were like they had the pattern, and I think they eventually. I might be wrong, but I think that's what eventually kind of like ended it. But it does FM, but it does the maths in a different way to the Yamaha. So the phases are always shifting. Like with like Yamaha FM, sometimes you can get it can cancel out because the phases are all locked. But the way the Synergy works, they shift around. So it just has such a nice sound. But they're like really sort of difficult to edit. You need like a K Pro, like an ancient computer to edit it and stuff. But they sound and you think it's sort of late 70s, early 80s, and it's just like they sound incredible.
Could you make?
Well, I would like to. I don't think it'll be a module. You could clone it like in an FPGA or something. Like it would be something cool to do. I think maybe somebody did it a few years ago. I'm sure someone will do it sooner or later. Yeah, they're lovely. They're ugly things, but they just sound amazing. And not, it's funny. Like, they look like a big string synth,
Oh, yeah.
But
it's good. It's good, by the way. That's these days we get all these new FM modules like yours. You like the Akimi's, Taiko, and Castle.
Yeah,
and also the Electron things. That make it much more editable without having to go into menus and diving. I mean, you can learn it, but it's still way more accessible if you have.
Definitely. And I think that's when FM becomes like so much fun. Like with the Castle, it's like just endless. Like even now, I still pick it up and I'm like, oh my god, I have like 2 of them in my system, and they always go to. You get like a whole track out of. They're like endless. And
the range of sounds you can get from FM is just incredible. There was did anyone ever see that massive controller that was
gelling house
for the DX7?
I have one of them. I think mine used to be Eno's. I think supposedly my one was Eno's. It's like a big blue. It's like a massive Akemi.
Company, right?
Dutch or German. They only made about 10-20 of them.
Yeah.
Like they're like stuck together with like bubble gum. They're like inside. They're like oh my god, and like the fuse always goes on it, and I have to replace the fuse. Yeah. There's like a modern version of it now, which my friend's got. I forget what it's called, but it's basically the same thing. But there, you just like you know, like chuck from the circle on, chuck a load of like just a nice little pattern in, and then you're just like twiddling, and you know, you're in your own little world, bit of delay, and it's like, oh, this is great. But it's
totally
and then it breaks.
The interaction.
Yeah. It's just, you know, you never know what you're going to get, you know, and it's a lot more kind of unpredictable than analog, you know. It all, and which in some ways is worse, but in other ways is you know, it's amazingly fun, and you're constantly like surprising yourself.
That's cool. It's not just Sussex then, it's something else.
I think it's. Am I still really loud? Because I did put my volume down. Like, people are complaining that I'm loud. I'm not sure if it's. I don't mean to be.
It just sounds like just such a general complaint, and it's like, you're awfully loud, Matthew.
Getting all excited. Oh,
what's up with all caps, Matthew? No, I love that, man. I love the idea of you sitting with this massive controller for a DX7. But it's just a powerful machine, isn't it? Once you can unlock the beast. I mean, what were they thinking? They would have just, all
the old Yami stuff is cool, though. And some of that you can pick up still really cheap. Like the little, what is it? Like there's like a little half rack, basically TX. A DX100. And you can pick them up for like 50 quid still. It's basically like a DX100 in a little box.
FB01, I think you mean.
Yeah, that's it. Like and you get a little editor on the computer, and they're amazing. You know, they got a lately bass and everything. You know, they're totally techno.
Lately bass. I know it all comes back. That's lately bass.
Yeah.
Whoever designed lately bass is just like, I was having a good day. I mean, what is it about lately bass? It's just. I remember when I first heard lately bass, it was in some kind of rack module that was kind of a later FM Yamaha thing, a 1U thing.
Yeah.
And I'd never heard of lately bass. I wasn't aware of it at all. But sure enough, as soon as I found lately bass, I was like, oh no.
I think it was solid bass in like a TX, and then
on the DX100 it's called solid bass.
And then they tweaked it after "What have you done for me lately?" Because
is that what it is?
Yeah, and that's where it became lately bass.
Lately, I mean,
but
it's
also it's in Wakefield, isn't it? Saturday night, and then you can't unhear it.
Isn't it called lately based afterwards because it was used on Janet Jackson?
Yeah.
Oh man, that makes sense. I never even
they
thought
like tweak the aftertouch on it or something. It's like a slightly tweaked version of solid bass.
You should do a version of Squid. You should do a version of Squid that has like a crazy different
googling in the background,
different DAC or whatever. Could you do like a really lo-fi Squid?
Well, you can drop the bit depth down on the Squid.
Yeah, no, like that's true. That's true. Yeah. It's variable, isn't it?
Oh, you know what's a really nice feature, Matthew? I don't know if the Squid does it, but I've got this old Akai S612. You know that?
Yeah.
The one with the floppies. It's got two sliders, one for the starting point and one for the end point of the sampler, of the sample.
And they can cross over.
Yeah, if you put them in, the sample starts playing backwards, which is really cool. So if you put the start of the sample behind the end, the sample reverses, and it's a really nice thing to tweak,
there's a reason why the Squid doesn't do that.
Oh yeah, there we go.
And do you have the MIDI add-on? You can get like a MIDI board that this guy in the UK makes. I think it's Hideaway. He makes like an add-on MIDI board so you can control it. I think it lets you control all that over MIDI. I'm not 100% sure. Yeah. I think
that's what hands are for. Sometimes too much control is not what you want. I know what you mean.
No, it's just these two sliders, and it's hours of fun, man.
Yeah, actually, that if you could sequence it. Oh, that's right. I remember that now. You can sequence the start and end point. That is kind of sweet, actually.
Yeah, and you can get the nice little add-on to hold the disc. There's like a nice looking that holds the disc, like another rack that goes with it.
Like a toast.
Yeah.
And the floppies are double-sided.
Yeah, but you don't need to save sounds on a 612.
It's cool though.
You just make a sound, and it is cool. What was the thing that Vogel
posted?
What was the thing that Vogel posted? Like an Amiga disc with busy circuits on it.
Oh, that was a little sticker, like one of the stickers that he'd returned something for repair, and I sent him some stickers back. They were just like, just like it's like the Amiga boot.
Yeah, no, I remember.
Screen that's with, just like silly, like.
Chris was a big Amiga user, like big tracker. When I met him, like he was tracking all the way.
Yeah, look, I have my Amiga here. I got. Can we see my Amiga? There's my Amiga.
It's great.
My 2000. But
I would have killed for an Amiga back in the day, man.
I would have as well. Like I had like a 500, and I used to run like Octamed on it, and dream of having enough money to get an ST and Cubase.
Well, I had an ST and Cubase, and I wanted an Amiga. I could have found it. We'd known each other then.
Yeah,
no, it's true. We're only down the road. It turns
out.
No,
I know.
I done physics in your place, and I was just like, oh man, it's cool.
I was playing with the Amiga more for video stuff though. Like I got the video toaster and stuff, just like tinkering, and for like, I like I have an ST as well, and I like running like old ST software. Like there's some really nice like synth editing software, and it just has like funny ideas that never sort of went anywhere, like because they were so limited in what they could do software wise.
Yeah.
And there's some really nice ones that are like randomizers, so they just generate like random patches with a DX, but they work in like really like clever ways. I haven't done that for a while, but that's quite cool.
That would be a good add-on for the Squid, actually. Be like a kind of a random shuffler of all the samples, just to make like 8 samples. Just toss a crazy dice and just be like mid-performance. Why not? See what happens.
Yeah, my friend Sasha, who helped do the sample banks who did all the mastering and whatnot on the sample banks. I think he's got a version of the Squid firmware that actually does that, because he was like, but I never sort of finished it. I don't think it's in, so it would just like load random patch sets, like patches from everything. Because he really likes working in that kind of way where he'll just likes to start with a load of random stuff and see where it sort of takes him.
I know. Well, one thing
I like random. I like random, but it's we were just discussing, the FM editors, but there was this Steinberg program for the Atari back in the days. Which would you randomize? Came in like a
big folder.
I think so. Which would let you randomize your FM sounds, but you could set ranges, so you wouldn't end up with extremes.
Exactly.
And all the editors I've seen since don't have these.
And you can mask off stuff as well. So you could sort of keep the envelope, but say don't touch the envelope, but randomize all this, and only use these values.
There was a great piece of Do you ever use Polyplex? Did you ever use Native Instruments Polyplex?
No.
It's actually really sweet. I mean, it's strictly in the computer and it doesn't mess with synths, but it had great randomization, like you're talking about. You could set ranges. There's so many parameters that you could randomize. And man, for making samples for sample packs and stuff, I made a lot of custom Max for Live things where I could remotely load samples in, because it had a lot of flaws, the thing, and it never really worked. But you can combine and just roll the dice on 4 individual ones to make snare combinations and drum combinations. And man, it was a lifesaver. That it just made me, because I could sit back, press a button and go, don't like that, do like this, but let's change the pitch, and then make variations within the variation. And it was just such a nice way to come to the sound, just to feel the sound emerging, sort of go, stop there, but change just this now. Okay, good. But I want now give me 8 variations on the theme. And like, that is nice. That would be great in sound design in general, just to be able to
process, yes, absolutely.
Cast a sort of random net over a lot of things.
I was just the other day looking into, or I randomly stumbled upon this system Kyma or something like that.
Sure.
Have you ever worked with that?
As well.
Yeah, that's what he uses, isn't it? Yeah.
Right.
He's like,
he's well into that, isn't he?
I mean, that is, it's a command line thing.
Right.
It might not look like it is.
It's not.
It might not look like it is, but it is.
Well, okay, but I mean, there are loads and loads of
true.
sound. They're presets. They're called sounds, though. I've used it for ages.
Okay.
I still got it here.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
come have a look next time you're here.
Yes.
But
Well, yeah.
yeah, you're right, Jamie. But at the same time, there's a massive community, and there's
Yeah,
so much
right,
out there
right,
already
right.
that lets you
Yeah.
use it without getting really deep into it.
Okay.
Can you
It's
still
pretty
do,
much just
is it, for
yeah, it's pretty
additive
much the
synthesize,
same.
it's the best for additive, right?
Yeah, I kind of use it more for sample-based stuff, like the FFT
Right.
things and the morphing and all that stuff. And
Yeah.
as far as sound, it's absolutely unparalleled. It's just crazy how pure and artifact-free it remains. Whether you are going to the craziest extremes, it still retains a very solid and very smooth sonic character. And I think
Interesting.
that makes it different from, for example, if you're into granular and stuff like that, then there's loads and loads of choices. There's so many things you can get there, even for on iOS. There's so many choices, but there are some really good ones, but nothing beats Kyma in terms of sound. The sonic quality is just insane.
But then with Kyma, the thing is it capable of live processing information that it's receiving in any way, or is it something that you really sit down for it and you have your library of sounds and everything and load it up and then you work in Kyma? How does it play well with others, or is it
it takes live input, and obviously there will be a bit of latency because you're going in through a sound card or from a computer digitally. You don't really need to be in you can bypass the analog domain entirely unless you want to have some analog feed into it.
Okay.
But yeah, of course, it takes some time to process, although it's quite fast. But it also depends on the sound card you've got attached to it.
Right. Yeah, of course.
It's there are ways to use it in real time with live feed going into it. But I think it's the way it's designed is more for sound design, which takes place non-real time domain.
Right.
So but it is very powerful. It's really powerful, and I love the sound.
Yeah, it would be cool to be able to access the power of that kind of CPU, intensive process, but in the modular world. You know what I mean? Because it sort of almost feels like the two things never really collide, do they? It's sort of like the computer is the undisputed champion of the number crunch, and the Eurorack is at best it's rocking some pretty measly CPUs and stuff. Obviously,
there are things you can do like in Max MSP or in Reactor. You can build sequencers in Kyma, and it has a timeline mode as well, so you can have things happen over time. But yeah, it doesn't really integrate with the outside world as much as you would like to, of course.
Yeah.
I think it's speaking with Richard Devine on my podcast a while back. He was saying how he's kind of getting frustrated with modular sequences, and he's going to move over to sequencing the modular with the computer using like an RME thing with 32 outs, and just using the CD control from the computer and doing more of the William Field style algorithmic kind of
tidal sequencing.
Tidal.
Yeah.
What's it called? That's what it's called, right? Tidal. I can't remember what it's called.
Yeah, it's live. It's based on live coding. So basically,
like Super Collider.
Oh yeah.
Is Super Collider intimately attached to it, or is that just the sound engine?
I think it's just the sound engine.
Right. The tidal cycles. That's what it's called.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, I know. There's like, good ALM or whatever. There's a new generation of programmers, right? That are just kind of changing that stuff. That's exciting. It would be cool to somehow see that kind of without the. I mean, I was just thinking as you were talking, something made me just think like, with all of us sitting here, like we've been exposed to all of this technology since back in the early days, whatever. But like, where's it going? Where does Eurorack kind of go? How do you see that, Matthew? Yeah, exactly.
Where does it go?
Yeah. Do you think?
I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, do you have any like? Where would you like to see it go? Kind of.
Well, I'd like to see it get more kind of like affordable and accessible by people. I think that's the kind of the biggest downside is it's so expensive.
It's exclusive, yeah.
I guess the only way that'll just happen over time as it gets more and more popular. Like it definitely seems to be getting steadily more and more popular. You know, I guess it's the sort of thing. You know, it's kind of like it's a weird one because the kind of standards are very kind of like slack. You know, and there's a lot of sort of weird problems like with power and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But then it's kind of a double-edged sword because at the same time that means that people come up with all this like weird and wonderful stuff, you know, and if it did have a load of strict rules, then it wouldn't have that kind of creative kind of energy behind it. And you know, I don't think, you know, like 5 years, I don't know, it just seems to keep growing. You know, it's like it's kind of amazing as well because there's if you sort of spend the time and really kind of hunt out, you can get the most amazing kind of like weird, amazing modules, you know, that maybe only sell like, you know, 20, 50 units, but they do amazing things, you know.
Yep.
I think you see a lot of racks and they're always the same, you know, they always have the same sorts of sets of modules. And I think that's a bit sad because I think people spend the time and kind of really hunted and, you know, there's still like a buoyant second-hand market. You know, it's easy to sort of buy and sell things, you know, if you don't like them and really kind of experiment with some of the kind of smaller manufacturers and these kind of like more sort of crazy out there ideas, you know.
Yeah, I must admit, Colin, I'm definitely envious of your whole like 4-time Schwayman kind of filter control. So that's your macro control in a way, isn't it?
Yeah. It's the
DJ macros.
In a way, you mean the QMF4 thing?
Just sounds so sick.
And it works fantastic. It's
I love where you got it in the rig and how you can think with it and like really like that's the console almost.
Right. Well, that's kind of the thing. Like in the end, you only have 2 hands still.
Yeah.
And with those 2 hands, you're gonna try and control everything that's going on there and figure out tricks to make as much impact as you can and kind of budget your time per module in a way, if that makes sense almost.
No, totally.
So it's always a matter of finding tricks how to get as much done with as little motions possible without it going into generic mode in a way. If that
no, completely.
That makes sense.
Have you ever used anything that gives you the same feeling as that machine?
As this machine here.
The Schwayman, you know.
Oh, in that sense. Well, it's the Schwayman. What I really like about this one, the QMF4, is really that it's for super well designed and well sounding filters on a very small footprint. I must admit that I already broke the first channel within the first month that I had the thing, so I'm only using 3 channels.
No way.
And but it's one of those things where at that point I just go like, I could send it back, but then it's gone, and that just messes too much with my system. So so guess I'll live with it. But but it's basically I have these little filter portals throughout the entire system where I've started using filters as mixers lately.
Yeah. Where
just having the filter becomes my master knob for an entire group. And instead of opening it up with a volume, you open it up in a frequency band, and that just kind of makes that sound in a way.
Super cool. It's great to have. I mean, in a way, if you had all these macro controls or certain kinds of them, that you might not come up with those solutions, and those solutions maybe give you a sound, and that sound is like what we all need, you know.
Well, definitely, it's like the sum of those parts in the end. Well, this definitely is a sum of the parts kind of situation that's going on here, and it's I really if those macro controllers would have been out there, I would have used them. But since they have not been there when I needed them, I kind of made my own. And there's all these small little tricks, so I'm always looking for the super dumb modules that only have like 1 or 2 functions and that's it, and you just have like 2 switches on it and you and 1 rotary knob. And
it's satisfying, isn't it?
Exactly. It's like I cannot afford to spend time on a menu
Yeah.
ever. You know, it's
Exactly. Like, is that why you don't? Yeah, but then you do get into the 301.
yeah, true. But that's
That's
but
the
then
most
again with the
menu guide of
301,
all.
that's the but then again with the 301, it's also the one that I cannot patch on the fly.
Yeah.
Like
And then this thing you recently got into, the Symphonion.
the Symphonion, yeah,
That
it's
doesn't
actually
look like an easy, straightforward thing.
it's not an easy thing. It's seriously, since
How are you
I've had
getting
this
on with
thing, I'm actually studying it the same way I used to study trumpet back when I was back when I was a kid, or
Wow,
same way I
that-
had piano classes and stuff like that. You really sit
Totally.
down with it, and you have to put in
Yeah.
time to understand it, because it's not one of those. Well, I screwed it in, and the first thing I found was the arpeggiator, and that one is like, ooh, yes, there's 2 knobs, and it's instant gratification. But it's a bit of a shame to get like such a massive module just for the ARP function on it. So,
Colin, do you ever think of like challenging yourself to play with like a really small system rather than
Yeah.
using like all this modular? Like when I was sort of like, that's what I try and do with like stuff like the Squiddies and also the Pamela, like try and pack
Yeah.
as much in so
Yeah.
people don't need these massive systems. You know, you can get away
Yeah.
with like 9U or even 6U and do like a
Yeah.
really kind of like varied, interesting set. Like, you know, like I
Yeah.
have friends that do that, you know, and I find that really
Yeah.
clever and impressive, where they're having to learn like the sets
Yeah.
of every module kind of inside out, and really
Yeah.
kind of it becomes almost like a
True.
kind of interesting exercise to get
Yeah.
like this set out, you know, of
well,
such a
it's
sort of small amount of equipment.
Well, I did,
Yeah,
but there's there's kind of
Colin
one.
actually, Colin only has 10 modules, but he's got like 60 of each.
That's kind of true. It's
Yeah.
like there's a lot of repetition in there. Like in the end, I'm still indeed only using VCO, VCF, VCA in an envelope, but just a whole stack of them. But
Yeah.
No,
Maybe
kind of
get
like
like
sound
maybe
in
get a
this room.
Jupiter 8.
well, no, but that's kind of the thing. Like if I were to, every time when I make a small setup with only a handful of modules, then it's those modules that require me to think in their logic of
yeah.
their interface, what they designed for me to play with. And a lot of the times I find that while that feels appealing, each and every module that packs a lot of functions into it has its own design philosophy behind it and stuff like that, and it's not quantifiable in something that if it works in this module, it's going to work in that module too.
It's having
And
to
in my
learn
system,
all different people's brains.
yeah,
every
in a
time
way
you-
it is, and
yeah,
it's like,
yeah.
Then there's another firmware update, and you're like, oh shit.
oh
But
my
surely,
god,
Now I've got to
but,
learn
yeah,
the
but
firmware.
surely having like a big system with lots and lots of
Yeah.
modules makes that problem even worse, because then you've got to like, I just find that I'm way more
Yeah.
productive with like a small
yeah,
like with like a small system than I am with like my big system. Like I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
I've forgotten how that one works, you know.
well,
And
this
when
is true,
if I set myself up with like a
Yeah.
small little 6U, then I find it a lot more kind
Yeah.
of productive and enjoyable.
well, that's kind of the thing. I have this filtering process of the modules that come into my system, and that is, they're all one-trick ponies. Basically, all my modules
Yeah.
are specifically one function, and they do that one function well. And there's no menu structure behind it. There's no added layers behind it. There's nothing of the sort, because I have other modules that do that specific function better. And then, of course, the system grows, but the module doesn't have to do the patching for me. I have to patch mine myself, and I can chain the individual parts in whichever sequence and order and whatsoever that I can think of. And sometimes that ends up with, like, just a couple of weeks ago, I specifically started looking for a trigger sequencer that did not process the incoming clock, because the patch I had in mind needed to be able to follow wonky clock signals. And I found out that half of the sequences that I had in my rack did some sort of extrapolation of the incoming clock signal, and therefore would not accept an unstable clock. And all of a sudden I started categorizing all my sequencers in terms of smart clock and dumb clock, And I found out that I prefer the dumb clocks over the smart clocks because they will always follow the orders that I give it. And it's little things like that where I don't need the module to do that thinking for me, because the patch that I'll be making with it will have certain specific uses of it that I don't need it to interfere with. So it's... but I do get, at the other hand, that there are some amazingly smart modules out there. Like, for example, the ER 301. Take that thing and you feed it with, like, if you take like 2 dual LFOs and hell, I think that's all you need. You can make entire tracks just with that one thing, and it's gonna sound fantastic. However,
but that's what I mean. Like, I think the ER 301 is more kind of like aimed at that kind of small system. You know, it packs a lot in it's you know, and if you use it as kind of like the brain of your system, you'll get a long way with it, you know. Like,
true, definitely, and that's
it's a little bit too fiddly for me, you know.
The bow ties is going to be amazing for you, though, man. Talk about being like the dumb clock.
Yes. Yeah,
it'll be so rocking. Do you know what I mean?
Well, that's the thing. Is like when I saw that module just now, that's where I really start wagging my tail right away, because I see like
the most basic kind of sequencer possible, almost.
Exactly,
which is nice. It's satisfying. It's definitely really relaxing, isn't it? When you're looking at the crazy patch and you think, oh, geez, and then you just see a little light moving down. You go, well, that's what that one's doing. That.
Yeah,
we got a good little demo video with it where it's using a PAM, but not as a clock, where it's using all the PAM outputs as offsets into it, but then the clock is actually the mega slope, and it works as like this crazy little kind of sequencer, but it's quantized because all the PAM offsets are quantized. And like another thing you can do with PAM is like you can use PAM as a like a macro recall thing, because you can just use all the offsets as save banks. Yeah, like I know some people. Right? Yeah. You just don't use PAM as a clock. You just use it, and you can save all them offsets. So people I know people that use a PAM just as like a patch recall, just so they're like recalling the offsets and a live set, because you're getting quite a lot in, like, you know, AHP, whatever.
Yeah,
that's nice.
I'm just thinking, by the way, because to get back to the just still in response of the question, like, would a smaller system work for me? I think, in a way, I have actually done something like that, only slightly differently. I have decided to go full on 100% dogmatic and cut out everything that's not modular in my workflow. And therefore, it's not making my system smaller or anything, but it is cutting away everything that does not fit in that workflow, and makes it so that I don't have to learn anything else outside of this and work with that. And that did help me, because I noticed that every time when I walk towards a computer, I'm dead serious about that. I just completely lock up. Like, no creativity comes out of me when I'm staring at a computer screen, for example. And the same goes with plugins and all of that stuff.
Why do you find that, though? Do you find that? Because I normally find that when there's like too much choice, where there's like, you know, I can do all this stuff, but I just don't know where to start. But then that's why I don't understand why a big system don't you effectively hit the same problem.
No, it's like the difference for me is that I get stuck in the loop, basically. I start building on a loop and going like, hey, I can add more tracks, and I can add even more, and I can build on this, and I can stack all these plugins on each other.
And there is just too much choice, and there is kind of like no limitation.
But then I start thinking strictly vertically, and I completely lose track of the fact that there is actually a timeline which I'm playing to, and that I'm actually building something on it. And that's with the modular system is everything changes the moment you touch something, and the time is running, kind of like the tape deck. The tape deck thing that Jamie was talking about earlier, where after 20 minutes you're done and that's it. It's
I think you feel these things coming when they're happening. You know, when you're creating something and you think, okay, now you basically go for that sort of goosebump moment, and when it's there, you basically are done, or at least a very very long way into where you want to be.
Yeah, and it's kind of like I cannot do that on a predetermined basis. Like premeditated production for me is doesn't work with me, and the only way I can actually do it is by actually doing it in that exact moment and hoping to God that I'm actually recording it while I'm doing it. But it's when I'm preparing chunks and making a timeline out of it, that's the part where things just kind of go wrong for me. So it's by having it this way, you're playing them out and reacting to it in that exact moment, and building your tracks from there. And it, even though it looks like music production in a way, or you can produce songs on it, it is still an instrument like a piano is, for example. And that's really the thing for me, is like the this instrument is about composition and production, but still primarily an instrument, whereas in software sequencers and stuff like that, it is primarily about production and composition, where you play instruments in it. And it's that slight kind of reversal of order made all the difference for me, I think. That's and in that sense, then adding more modules to it is basically just an escalation of possibilities in a way, but it's still something that you can always bring in while you're thinking of it and play around with it. It's never really felt like a restriction.
I think it works different for everyone, because not everybody's head works the same way. You know, if you've got the kind of brain that can keep all those things dormant while they're not necessary, you know what I mean? And not be dazzled by the infinite amount of possibilities. You've got to keep yourself on the road, you know. You've got to keep yourself in on the path. And if for some people a massive system is daunting, and for others it's a challenge, or it gives a sense of freedom. I think I belong in the first group. I'd rather sit down with a few pieces that I really understand and try to make something beautiful out of it. And
but I mean, it's so funny though that I had an experience the other day, because in my little studio I've got over there, I can only bring over a small amount of stuff. So I had a couple of skiffs that I had lying around, and I didn't like it because I was like, man, I just don't quite have the right stuff in this configuration right here to really express myself, you know. And whereas on this main rig, I know how to coax a sound, even though now I'm in that horrible position of I've got a 301 patch that's really involved, and it really needs the 301. It's the center of everything, and if I take that patch out, it's one of those, you know what I mean? It's taken me so long to get this bloody patch, and I'm trying to milk it for every sound I can get out of it.
I'm not saying any random amount of gear, but a
right.
really well planned setup, which gives
something
you
like a coupe.
Yeah,
it would be as if there was modules all aligned together. But really you're right. Idea. I mean, look, there's a reason why certain synths like a 101, or you know, they're so great, and it's the combination of the size of the machine, just like it's just the feel of it, the sound of it, the response you get. Like that's why they become classics, isn't it? ARP 2600 is just like everything you touch on it sounds glorious. True. The layout is amazing. Minimoog, it's like the layout is flawless. It's just like you understand what's going on. You can just play, and it's like it sounds great, and it's like it's kind of simple in a way, isn't it? It's like but also sometimes I wish I didn't have a Minimoog, because I don't like not being able to get in there, you know. Now I want to like not think that way in a way. So I suppose
now you say this, are there any modules out there which are going to be, or maybe already are, as classic as these classic old
right.
Well, Pam's is up there, isn't it?
Yeah, Pam is definitely a classic one.
Be nice to think so.
Oh, it is.
I guess
mass, and they've got to be some of the biggest modules ever, isn't it? Well,
that would be cool. I guess,
But then you've got things like those Macbeth oscillators that you use, Colin, when they sort of seem to be stand head and shoulders above other oscillators sonically.
These ones.
Just damn.
Yeah,
They sound stupid.
Man, I'm so happy with that. It's actually the first module I bought, and
yeah,
man,
they are ludicrous. So I heard those, and I was like, ooh.
Yeah.
I mean, you just need 8 of those.
Pretty much. It's, yeah, that is more to do, I think, with Ken's production speed than anything
you can't
else.
get 8. Yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah. No, that's the thing. I mean.
Yeah.
I know what you mean.
Yeah, somebody says
so fast.
Somebody says clouds.
Yeah,
I would agree.
Yeah, but then I think that just falls into that kind of thing, doesn't it? Of everyone gets rings and clouds, and I remember hearing a comment on the internet a while back, like, why does everyone's modular music sound the same? And I was like, wow, that's like the last thing I would
DPO
say.
definitely.
Yeah.
But
yeah, DPO. Yeah.
DPO. Yeah.
Well, actually, the ERP verb, I would say, is
Sure.
I love
it's
definitely.
I don't own one, but I just love it.
All the Toma modules are excellent.
For sure, definitely. It's like the Echophone is like one of those things that I still have to glue with every now and then, but the ERP verb really just made it into my patches and never left. That's for sure. And it's like with the clouds. The clouds is actually the only mutable instruments module that manages to not primarily sound like a mutable instruments module, if you know what I mean. It's like every time when I hook up the elements, for example, it sounds awesome, but it sounds like an elements and it sounds like a mutable instruments, and that will you'll always be able to pick it out. But the cloud somehow does manage to. They all have
this very, very clean, glassy sound.
Yeah.
I don't like that about them though. That's
I always, what happens to me every time with the mutable stuff, I'll plug it in on someone else's system, and for a minute I'm like, oh, why don't I have one of these? It's so cool. And then about an hour in, I'm like, I'm not feeling it. Though.
True.
I'm not feeling. I'm just something about.
Everyone's going QMMG in the comments.
yeah.
Like,
of course.
QMMG it leaks, and you know.
Oh man.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the thing. If you're a sound connoisseur, you're going to have an issue with a box that packs in too many sounds into a small box, because you just know they have to cut corners to do that.
And it gets a bit by the numbers, you know.
And it's those companies, I would always buy their control modules above their sound modules. But then when it comes to oscillators, I wish I had like more and more flavors, but that's it. I've got Surge, NTOs.
You got the Odessa. Is it the Odessa, the Chaos? You know, that's really nice to play. That's really nice.
Yeah.
Although, that I like that. That's the nicest oscillator.
It's
got like a really crystal clean, like a really sort of. It's very digital, but like super high end digital. You know, like really. Great, you know,
that's
that, I really like that.
It's funny, isn't it? So sometimes I'm about to make like an 808 from scratch kind of thing, just for a challenge. I really want to make the cymbal. I've never set about making that cymbal, and like I just got into reading about the way they made that machine, and I never knew that it was like 6 shared oscillators throughout the whole machine, right?
Yeah, so you got the detuned like square wave through a band pass to make the
6 or something.
Yeah, and they're all like slightly out of tune, and then they go through a band pass, and that basically becomes your. Do they mix it with noise? I can't remember.
No, there's no noise. There's 2 band pass and a high pass.
See, I always like the 606 hats. I made a 606 hats module once. I think there's like 2 of them in existence. I think.
Whoa.
There's noise in a 606 though.
Pardon?
It's 606 though.
Yeah. I'm not sure. It's kind of similar to an 808, but I think all the circuits in an 808 are similar to a 606, but they're all just a little bit more complicated. I think a little bit more.
Imagine coming up with the 808 symbol. Imagine making that sound. When you look at the circuit,
but when they made it, they probably thought, oh look, we've had to cut all these corners. It sounds nothing like a real cymbal. It's awful. Like so no one's going to buy this. What have we made? And that's probably what did happen, right, for a while.
I know. Well, sometimes just marvel at that sound.
You know, people say that every 808 sounds different, and it's true. But cymbal is the most noticeable instrument. If whenever you play on somebody else's 808, the
cymbal.
cymbal sounds totally unlike.
Well, that's because it uses all
Yeah.
the 6 oscillators shared
guess
within
so,
the
yeah.
patch.
Yeah.
If they're out of tune slightly, because they're inharmonically
and-
tuned to sort of emulate a metal, right?
Yeah,
So
and
they're
also
tuned to
when they
specific
were
frequencies.
when they were made, components had different tolerances to what they do today. So that's why the clones never sound quite the same, because the tolerances
Right.
in modern components are a lot better.
Right.
So, and also over time, you know, them tolerances will get just like a little bit worse, you know, things age. And I think that's why they kind of all sound slightly different, you know.
I'm excited to make it and tune them, because some did it, like a Stanford guy did a whole paper on all of the exact tunings of all the oscillators and every frequency of the bandpass and everything. So I'm going to build it on the system, and I'm like, how do I get 6 squares? I don't know. I want the best squares I can get. And then I'm like, the problem with that is then I'm going to have to like attenuate 6 squares down. You know what I mean? It's just thinking of the gain staging is like messing with
It'll
my
be
head.
all right. You'll be all right. You'll be all right.
Yeah, for sure. But you know what I mean? It's just like you want it to be like this ultra hi-fi thing, because I'm thinking if I could use like a big modular to basically do a slightly improved 808 or like an extended one.
I
like,
think there's
what would
a
you do,
a
you know?
dot for module that already gives you the 6D tuned square wave.
Yeah,
I think so,
That's
yeah.
right. Yeah, it's the cowbell or something, right? Or no,
No, I think it's like, is it like I don't know. There's definitely
what you mean,
a dot for one that does it.
I think I heard it today, actually. Snyder's Bureau, there was like a demo, and I was like, that's that sound, that kind of weird, like, sounds like the cowbell, because they use 2 of them in the cowbell, right? They use 2 of the oscillators to do the bell.
Yeah, I'm not
the
sure about
cowbell.
the cowbell.
They share the oscillators throughout the whole machine.
Yeah.
Oh,
They
wow.
would. I would imagine they
Isn't
would.
that so sick? Because I was like, how can you justify having 6 oscillators or whatever?
Oh, but they'll
for
be like
a
really
single
simple.
symbol?
They'll be like really simple oscillators. They won't be like a
They're just
DPO or
pulse,
something. They'll just
right.
be like, you know, a handful of components.
But that's
You know,
what
they
I'm
won't
saying.
be
Imagine
voltage
if you
controlled.
did that with pulse width modulation on all of those. Do you know what I'm saying? It might just sound shit.
Yeah, I don't know.
It'll just be like way worse. Just be like, put all these fancy versions. It's all NTO and like, you know, SEM, and I'm thinking I'm gonna use my SEM, and I'm gonna use like the NTOs and like my best oscillator.
The most
use all the worst
expensive
stuff.
808 symbol ever.
Yeah, and just try and do it with the band passes and stuff.
Nice
But
one.
anyway, we'll see.
Do you
We'll
get
see how I
obsessed
on.
with like making certain sounds? Like I'm
Yeah.
obsessed with like the washing machine bass. I can't work out whether that was made with like a Juno or like a Jupiter 6. Like
What,
just
the-
square waves through choruses, basically.
The Mentasm.
I love them.
The-
No, not the Mentasm.
No,
The
fingers.
wash. Yeah. The washing
Yeah.
machine bass. You know, like I'm just obsessed with that sound, and like it's basically just a square wave, like a sub
Yeah.
through a chorus, but there's such
Totally.
kind of like variation in it.
I know,
And it
the
seems that every
Jupiter-
synth does it slightly differently.
The Jupiter 4 that I have it does a really nice. It's got an ensemble, one of the Roland ones, and
Yeah.
if you don't put the Jupiter 4 in unison mode, the square sounds purer, obviously, because it gets getting 1. And I
Yeah.
think that's kind of key, isn't it, to that sound? You don't want unison, because otherwise it gets too like.
Yeah, I don't know. Like on a Jupiter 6, it sounds more chorusy than I don't know. It's,
Yeah, depends on the machine.
And
like,
I can imagine that it could be a very straightforward source, but if you listen to the rest of the track, the washing machine track, everything sounds incredibly EQ'd, you know. So it could be the same with a bass line, that it's just a
And
really
it's
dull,
going
sounding
through
bass line,
some sort of
which is
delay.
the hell out of, you know.
Yeah, and it's going through some sort of delay line, obviously, because it's being played with while it's playing. So it could be that could be colouring it quite a bit as well.
I love it.
Yeah,
that's so
I love
good.
that.
Just
It's really
getting to
fucking
making the
geeky.
sounds. I know, but it's when you do get it, it's sort of like this aha moment. Like when I got hold of the Marshall time modulator, you guys know what that is?
Yeah. Do you still have one? That was
Yeah,
like
I've got
the,
one. Yeah, I've got one. It's like, and I was, because for so long I was trying to work out what the flange is on Stevie Wonder's vocal. You know, every now and again he'll use like a flange on a vocal, but it's such a glassy flange. It's not. It's
That was a Joy
it's gotta be
Division
the
one,
time
wasn't it? It was what
modulator.
the Joy Division.
It's Martin
Yeah.
Hannett. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've
He
got
used
this-
it all over stuff.
This is my Martin Hannett sort of dedication rig here.
Oh yeah. Very nice.
The
Have you got
1580 and the time modulator, man. Good God, they're good. And like that's the thing. You think, why can't anyone make a module that sounds as good as that now?
Have you looked inside one of them?
Which one?
Look inside inside the AMS, inside the AMS delay, and then you'll see why no one's built a module of it.
Oh yeah, I know. I'm trying to interview the guy for the podcast.
Oh, that'd be wicked.
Yeah, because he's kind of a hard guy to get hold of, but I'm getting close. Yeah, it's like a 15-bit computer, isn't it? It's like
it's
really
just
weird.
It's just like the whole thing is just rows of cards just full of.
But I have a Publisher Infernal machine as well, which is
they're cool as well.
It's just dead, and that's what happens when you buy that era of technology. When it goes wrong,
I guess some
stuff
stuff
can fix it.
Yeah, some stuff's more like reliable than others, though, I guess, isn't it? Like they're known for, aren't they, them infernal machines. And then nobody really knows. It's like there was never any sort of schematics, you know.
Well, there's a guy now in Paris that is like, because I think the guy died and like he left the factory behind. And there's one guy called Piscine Tokyo or something on Instagram, and he's now the company basically. He went to the factory, reclaimed all of the machines. It's in good hands. He really is fastidious. He's amazing, and he's like he's doing the circuits like reverse engineer. Like if you guys get hold of like a Publison like pitch shifting delay with the knobs on it, like it is so good. I mean, it is stupid. I mean, whatever.
I love all that stuff.
So do I. That era just drives me crazy. It's the only stuff I can justify having in the rack because there's nothing like it. Like it just shits on everything else. The AMS with the chorus module is just it just makes me laugh. It's just incredible.
Yeah, I have there's a guy that makes like new chorus controllers.
Yes, right. Coolco.
Yeah, I think it's a Hideaway dude again. It's like a little like box and it plugs in and
good, yeah.
Yeah, and it gives you like a randomization or something, which I don't think's on the original. I don't know. I've never seen.
It's expensive, man. Everything's expensive in that era, in that world. But you know what? Yeah, but comb filtering. Anything that does good comb filtering. Do you guys mess with comb filtering at all? Like, have you ever had an Ursa Major or anything like that?
Yeah, I have an Ursa. The Ursa's lovely.
Yeah, because that's my kind of dream machine. I love those.
The space
they're
station,
really cool. Yeah.
Again, probably a machine I should have bought in the 80s.
Yeah, they are really hard to get these days. There's another Ursa Major. What's it called again? It's an earlier one.
Well, there's a space station and
then the grey one.
Get are ridiculously expensive. Yeah, they're digital delays, reverbs.
Yeah. Is that what the Reverb is a little bit based on? Is it
really?
No, I'm not sure. I might be wrong. I think it's partly based on one, maybe not on Ursa, but something like that. I think I might be wrong. I don't know. I know he modelled a load of different kind of early reverbs for it, and then I think he modeled. There's a talk on YouTube that he does, and he talks about what all these like early reverbs that he looked at and whatnot. It's really interesting, and the sort of various kind of problems with each one, which are now kind of like the kind of interesting bits, like the ghost notes. They talk about the ghost notes on the Ursa, how people could just like tune it and it would start generating these like background.
I loved it.
Notes.
You know what? For a vocalist, like I used one at Sonic Ranch in Texas when I went out there, and I heard it on my voice, and I was like, it's my favorite delay on the voice I've ever heard, because it does the kind of Hass effect stuff like so beautifully. Like it's perfect for vocals. It's just incredible. I was like, oh shit, I need one of these so bad. Then I checked out how much they were, and I was like, I can't justify it. I just can't.
I think you can still get them for a reasonable price. They're not.
They're miserably expensive.
Yeah.
Sound gas, someone's mentioning sound gas.
I think sound gas you're going to pay. You're going to get something, but you're going to get something with a warranty and something that's been checked over. Yeah, that's what you're paying for basically.
But they got their infernal machines repaired by the guy pissing.
Yeah. Like they're going to be, you're going to get something top dollar from there, aren't you? Something that's not going to, that's been looked over properly and whatnot.
Yeah, no, totally. Oh man.
So guys, we've been talking for 2 hours and 15 minutes. I mean, I'm not in a hurry, but the battery of my thing is running out. So if we go on, we have to switch. I have to switch.
I
soon.
might have to jet because my wife is working out upstairs and our son is with her.
Okay.
And it's probably my turn.
Right.
But,
Okay. Well, there's one thing I promised someone who was on our Discord server this afternoon to ask Matthew if there are if there are going to be any more Haswell's Tychos.
No.
Or was that no? Fair enough. Okay.
No, I don't mean that. No, but it was kind of like, it was a limited edition. You know, that was always the, you know, and they were numbered, and that was, and I think, you know, yeah, we could do it again, but then it's like that wasn't. It's kind of, if you do a limited edition, it's got to stay a limited edition, and they are out there. Like I see them. I think some jokers have tried to sell them for like silly amounts of money. Yeah, but I think if you, I've seen them come up on eBay and go for like reasonable amounts. You know, I think, but I don't know. Maybe
you're a man of your word, man.
Yeah, you know, maybe in the future, you know, me and Russell have mentioned doing something that again, maybe in the future, you know, something different. But whether that will happen, I don't know. You know, I like, you know, it's kind of funny because it seems like it's pretty old module now, and it's not like massively different to a regular dinky. Like it is different, but you know.
Yeah. Okay.
Sorry.
Well, fair enough. No worries. So yeah, great talk, guys.
Gentlemen,
what a
yeah,
nice,
thanks for having us.
Great to ramble with you all, and
thanks for having me.
Great to see you all in good health.
Oh man, and there's a whole list of things that I'm going to be googling later. Just the whole DX7 era. I skipped all that. That was.
Oh yeah, don't try not to get involved with the 80s modulators. It's too expensive.
I'll do one more plug, and that's our Discord server. If people who've been watching this want to continue chatting, I'll be there after the show, and maybe one of you will hang around as well. You're welcome to join.
I can hop in for sure.
Okay, so yeah, thanks again, guys, and thanks everybody for watching. And
cool. Thank you.
Hope to see you again soon. Ciao, ciao.
Yeah.